Hi guys! So I'm going to attempt to make a makeup tutorial. This has been highly requested. And when I say highly requested, I mean my friends have requested it. And when I said my friends, I mean like all 4 of them. So yeah, I'm going to try and film a little bit as I do my makeup today. And I'm going to try to explain a little bit under the way and maybe talk about things that I want to talk about. So first of all, I'm going to start with my eyes and prime my eyes. I usually prefer to prime with something that does not have a lot of color or anything, just something that will give me grip. I'm using the MAC 24-hour extended eye base. I really like this. It's not very thick, or well, it's a thick consistency, but it's not a lot of color. It's basically no color. And it's easy to use, and I just apply that with my fingers. You can use whatever primer you prefer. Doesn't have to be this one. This is also my first time actually trying to film a proper tutorial. I've done some videos before, but I'm notoriously lazy. And I'm just not willing to put in the effort. So now I'm making an attempt at this again. And I don't really have like a fancy camera or anything. I do have a pretty decent phone though, with a decent camera. So I'm going to try with this and see how this turns out. Let's see. So, for this actually, if you want, you don't have to use a primer if you feel like putting down eye pencils as a base works fine for you. I just feel like eye pencils as a base alone for me might not hold as well as I would like it to. So I'm just like too scared of just putting that down. So I'm going to start with a blue pencil. The makeup I'll be doing is kind of blue today. And I'll be putting this mostly in the center of my lid because I'm going to use black on the other edges. And I'm going to try to not block the camera. And I'm using like a stiffer brush to just blend that out. This does not have to look perfect. It doesn't matter if it looks a bit wonky, it's just to have a base under it for everything else to grip a little bit better, and so you don't have to spend as much time building color because you already have a similar shade underneath for it to stick to. So it's just to make your life a little bit easier actually. Because I have a primer underneath, this might drag a little bit. If you find that really uncomfortable, again, don't use a primer. If it looks like I'm struggling a little bit to maneuver me doing my makeup, it's because I'm used to having a mirror where the phone is now. And so I'm not really used to this placement or used to filming or talking to a camera. Now I'm just putting down a little bit more black on the outer edges. And you know, at this point, you might be like, holy fuck, this looks like shit. That's because it does. And it's totally normal. The thing about makeup in general, which a lot of people can tell you, especially if they do a lot of makeup, is most of it just looks like shit until you're done. It's just like a really weird process. You just need to tough it out and keep on going, and then usually the end result will be wearable. So whenever you get to the point in the eye makeup, which will be several of them, where you're like, I can't continue, I have to remove this, it looks like shit, then don't. Just continue for a little bit more, and that will usually do the trick. I am the kind of person who prefer to do my eyes first, especially when I'm going to do something very bold like I will be today, just because, you know, I'm lazy and I would like for there to be no fallout messing up my base. And so I prefer to just don't do my base until the very last, so I don't mess it up too much, because if I have fallout all over and I try to blend it out after, your under eyes might end up looking grey, especially if you're using blacks and blues and stuff like that, which I will be using today. So now I'll be going in with some blue over this. I really want it to be more metallic blue. So I'm going to go in with a metallic blue. I'm just using a bunch of different metallic blues from MAC Cosmetics. I've kind of custom made my own palette. You can use whatever, or you can even use other colors. This is just the way I like to build up this kind of eye. Oh yeah, maybe turn around. And I usually prefer to saturate one side of the brush, so that if I were to want to, I could put another color on the other side. Preferably, if you're doing that, use similar colors, because if you use something very, very different and they were to somehow, you know, transfer from one side to the other, it might go muddy. So I usually just use something similar. So I'll be using a darker metallic blue as well. So I'll turn it around. I'm using a flat brush because this is easier to use when you're building up color rather than a fluffy one. If you want the saturation to be more soft, you can use a softer brush. So now you see I'm not really struggling to build up these colors because we already have the black and the blue underneath. So they will come quite clearer, and the eye pencils will also like grip the product a lot more. And so you don't have to work for so long to get the build up you'd like. And so I'm going to grab blending brush. I prefer a tiny one because I don't really have too much space and my eyelids are kind of hooded. Sometimes I feel like the bigger, fluffier brushes just takes up way too much space. But if you have a lot of space, just use bigger brushes if you prefer. I just prefer this. So I'm just going in with the same blue that I used in the middle, and a little bit, mixing it a little bit with the matter one, just to not have too much shimmer in the kind of, you know, gradation. So I'm mixing them a little bit. And especially when I'm coming to the outside part of the eye, or the eye look, I prefer to blend upwards and inwards, because if you start blending this way, it's very easily that it goes down here, and it's very easy for the eye shape to become a bit droopy, and in most cases you would obviously not want that. You want it to be more lifted, and so I am mixing it inwards. So yeah, I don't really have that much experience making tutorials, so I have no idea how this is going to go. But I had some friends request that I do tutorials to see how it goes, and I've kind of tried a little bit before, and I'm just really lazy, and I'm not willing to put in the effort to get it as well as I would like it to be. And I don't really, again, have a great camera. I've gotten a ring light eventually, not really for filming, just more because I live in Norway and it's dark most of the year, and so I would like something that somewhat simulates actual daylight, so the colors show up correctly instead of, you know, yellow bathroom lighting. Because I figured, you know, if there's one thing we need, it's another fucking makeup tutorial. So yeah, I just figured I could go for it, because, you know, this content would obviously be of the best prime quality, and obviously it will be a completely original look, something that you've never seen before. So I just had to make it, you know. So what you want to do when doing looks like this is just, you know, try to check that the shape is somewhat similar on each side. Obviously our eyes are different, so for some this might be easier than others. It's kind of like with brows, they don't have to be sisters. No, wait. They don't have to be twins, just sisters, you know. So you would ideally try to make them look, you know, remotely related at least. So I'm going to try and continue now, because I have been working on the same thing for forever now. I just will never stop blending. And so now I'm just putting a bit of the same black kohl underneath, because I'm going to build up some intensity there as well. So yeah. Fabulous. Okay. I'm actually going to take the fluffy brush again. I don't really plan this very well. I just kind of see what happens. And I'm dipping it into the lighter blue shade. And I'm going to proceed with the blend. And sorry if there's things I'm missing out on when I'm explaining. It's just like, if I'm doing makeup on other people, it's more natural to explain underway and think of things you should explain because you're doing it on someone else. But when I'm doing it on myself and I'm talking to basically no one, it's a bit difficult. But yeah, if you have any questions that you can't get answered either by me or any of the million makeup tutorials out there, then please write in the comments, hit me up on Instagram, whatever you like. Yeah, that looks good, doesn't it? Yeah, fine. Alright, so I want to create some more intensity. So I'm gonna go in with a black. Very black. Just on the inner and outer corners. Alright. And I'm using the same brush that I've used for the kohl and for the for blending out a little bit underneath. Because this is dense, so it will pick up the color and intensity the way I would like it to. And with this, try to be careful about how far out you blend it, because if you go too far it will start muddling up the gradient you've already, or the blend you've already done. Not sure if I'm not sure why I keep saying gradient. I'm not sure if that's technically incorrect, but your blend, you don't want to fuck up the blend. So now I'm using the blending brush that I've already used darker blues with, and so that I keep the one with the lighter blue on still somewhat clean, so if I need to go in to soften the edge again, I can do that. So I prefer for a look like this to at least have 2 blending brushes, sometimes 3 depending on how many shades you use. But I'm not using all that many shades. So then I'm going to do a little bit of foundation. I really struggle to find a good foundation, both in terms of shade, because I'm pale as fuck, and I also struggle to find something that I think sits nicely on my skin. Sure, I have some redness, but in all, my skin isn't really problematic. It doesn't look like I have a lot of texture. But there are some places where I have texture that shows a lot more when I put foundation on, and it will show more during the day if the foundation isn't wearing the way I would like it to. And so far, the one that I've tried that looks the nicest is actually the Studio Fix foundation by MAC. On its own, I feel like it could be a bit too dry and a bit too matte, but I mix in an oil with it, and I mix 2 different shades to get the result that I would like. And sometimes in the summer, if I want it thinner, I also mix it with a face and body foundation, but I feel that's a bit too sheer for me, and also the color they have is way too dark. So yeah, I've mixed it with some oil to get a thinner consistency, but still like the wear that I would like. So I am using a beauty blender. The reason mine looks fucked is because I have cats, and one of them in particular prefers to go steal my beauty blender. I have washed it, it's very clean still. I haven't let them play with it and just picked it up and started doing my makeup, don't worry. So actually I've been able to keep it away from her for a really long time now, but this is just like the damage she made from like one time of getting it, I think. So I'll be getting a new one very soon. I'm just too lazy, and she managed to find it and play with it as soon as I got it, and so I don't like to spend money on things that I don't have to. So now I actually think I'm going to put a little bit in my brows before I continue with the rest of my face. Just because sometimes when I lean on my face, it's easier to fix if I haven't put bronzer or powder or anything like that on. So I just, even if I start with my foundation before my eyes, I will always wait with powder and bronzer until after I've finished my eyes, because usually I will lean on my face. And this is also why I prefer doing the eyes first, is because when I lean on my face a lot, like even if you can fix it, it will just, the base won't look as fresh as it would have if you just waited to do your base until last. So I just want the finish to be really nice. I have a new favorite brow product. I'm not sure why this haven't existed forever. I know there are some brands that have been doing them, but this shade range and everything is just too good. I really like the Shape and Shade Brow by a Brow Tint, I believe it's called, by MAC. It's kind of like, mine is a bit wonky. I've had it in my bag for a really long time, so most of the things that I have will just look really worn and dirty because I carry it around with me all the time. So you can draw. Yeah, I'm so good at this, you can see. Sorry. This crusty bit is not my crusty hand, it's my primer that has dried down. So you can kind of draw individual hairs, and it will just look a bit more natural because the pigmentation is a bit more see-through, so it won't be like this super hard line. So I usually prefer to use only this or combine it with a shadow. Sometimes I feel like this can be a little bit hard in the front of the brow, so then I'll use a little bit of a shadow. So, I usually like my tail to be quite sharp, but not too dense. Do you know what I mean? Because I feel like you can, if you still want it to remain somewhat natural, you can get away with it a lot easier if the density of your brows isn't too hard. Like, it's not too dark, it's just filled in, but not like filled in to the point where it's just like one big blob of brow, you know, it's just like stamped on. Again, this is my preference. Alright, let's move on. So I was thinking I would maybe do a bit of freckles and show you the way that I prefer to do freckles. Ow, fuck. You can use eyeshadow, you can use a lot of things. Sometimes I feel like eyeshadow looks a bit too fluffy. It depends if you wet the brush, maybe not. Where is it? There it is. So I have, this is the old brow marker from MAC. They only had one shade, or at least as far as I know. And it's kind of reddish brown, and I like to just kind of stamp this on because it's kind of the same consistency as the new ones. So technically you can use those the same way. So I'm actually going to do my freckles before putting on my bronzer so that I can get most of the bronzer over top, and hopefully that will help it look a bit more realistic. So I'll dab over with my finger or the beauty blender. I'm starting on the nose because that's usually where we get the most of our freckles. I prefer to avoid the tip of my nose because it's already big enough. I don't need more focus there. I'm trying to place them kind of randomly, and you can decide how much you want. I don't always put that much. So I'll move on to bronzer. I'm going to use a cream bronzer. I'm using Mid-Tone Sepia by MAC. Again, all the MAC. And I am actually going to work it on the back of my hand because it's not warmed up enough for it to move around nicely if I don't do it this way. And then I'm putting it on a, I guess it's Real Technique brush, and just dabbing this over top. Try avoid moving the brush around too much, just dab. Don't drag. Don't drag. And when I do it here, a lot of people start here if they want to contour, or in the back because they want it to look really sculpted. I prefer it not to look too sculpted because I feel like it just looks a bit unnatural. So I usually start by putting my bronzer on the top part of my cheek and blending backwards because I feel that's when it will look a bit more natural. Because sometimes I feel when you start in the back and go forward too much, it will just look like this stripe. So I like for it to blend backwards instead of blending from the back forward, as you can tell. So I have kind of blended out some of the freckles a little bit, which is fine because then it's easier to layer them. But I'm going to go in with a couple of more just to get it a bit more intense some places. I'm using a bit more of a glowy blush. I'm dabbing it on because I'm worried that I'll mess up a little bit of the blend if I don't. And then I'm going to use some highlighter. I'm going to warm up my hands a little bit because I'm using a cream highlighter and I want it to blend on really nicely. I'm actually using a Mascara highlighter. What's it called? Gleam. And I'm actually going to use a little bit of powder highlight since I'm going out over this. I want to look pretty. Why am I making this face? Just a little bit of this on the highest points of the face. I want to get some more intensity though, so I'm going to try. This might fuck up everything, but I'm going to try anyway. A little bit of this. Oh damn. Oh damn. Oh yeah. Hell yeah. That is lovely, that is. I think maybe I should start putting something on my lips now. It's kind of my go-to nude lately. And when I say nude, it's not really nude because other people's nude is not my nude. I prefer to go towards peach or pink. So my go-to nude is actually, or lately as things change, Cream Cup by MAC. Ooh. Ooh. So fucking classy! I'm going to put some brow gel in my brow hairs, or I was going to, but I'm actually out of brow gel, so I'll just be using normal gel, because that works too. Oh, I'm fucking dying. Ugh. I think I'm actually going to stop here. I'm gonna powder a little bit. I usually just take a translucent powder or just a very light powder. And when I mean light powder, it's not just like obviously light because I'm light, but in consistency, something that I don't go ham with the powder. I usually just powder where I tend to get a little bit oily. And I prefer this tiny Real Technique brush for this because I don't want the powder everywhere. And then I'm just going to spritz my face a little bit with Fix Plus. I actually think maybe I want to attach some stars. Just one or two. Just because, why the fuck not? I already think that's better. It's better. It's kind of better. So this is the finished look. I really like the way this turned out. I think the colors are really fun and it works really well with my yellow hair. I normally, again, don't like blue, but it works really well with this. So I hope you like the way this looks. I really enjoyed this actually. I'm gonna turn on the ring light again so you can see what it's like with that on. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you actually made it to the end, wow, thank you. I'm considering doing this again. I might, who knows, we'll see. So yeah, thank you so much for watching and I'll maybe see you next time. Bye.